What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of 𝐦𝐤 Kicking Knowledge. Today, we'll be taking a look at the upcoming Venus retrograde occurring in the sign of Capricorn. So, let's get into it. Now, before we get into it, if you don't know and you are interested, I have released my book, Astrology of the Matrix, available for purchase in print at lulu.com as well as geminibrown.com. If you would like a signed copy or a PDF ebook version, feel free to email me. But one of the things that I talk about in the book, that's a large portion of astrology and the spiritual journey, is time. Time. And what we do in astrology is that we measure time, or we track time through cycles and the movements of the planets. Now, we know that Mercury is the planet that goes retrograde the most frequent. Venus is not. Venus goes retrograde about 7% of the time. Interesting thing here, though, and I encourage you to explore your relationship with time is, if you can remember, think about when the last Venus retrograde occurred, okay? And then, if you can, think about the frequency of how did that feel? How or what has occurred since that last Venus retrograde cycle? And just so you know, it occurred in Gemini, all right? And it occurred during the pandemic too. So this is now occurring in Capricorn. And I would just bring up time because of the motion. The motion, it's one where I always tell people, you must reflect. You must reflect on the journey. Keep tracking. How did you get here? How did you learn astrology? Who opened you to this? Because once you can become mindful enough to associate it with the certain cycles or transits, this awareness, this sight becomes a power, and you can know what to, expect or how to move. So this Venus retrograde is going to start on December 10th, and Venus is going to be around 26 degrees Capricorn. This is an interesting part, right at the end, okay? So you'll really want to be looking at, let's just say, your last 2 months. So go back to when Venus was in Sag and all of that. What are these themes? What has been going on? Right? Where's your attention been called to? The next interesting thing is also things have been in front of our faces. Things have been in front of our faces. And this retrograde is going to be you're going to notice the thing that was there the whole time that you didn't notice before. Like, what the fuck? So there's going to be a bit of disillusionment with this, but it's going to trigger the transformation. But like I said, it's going to take us to the end of the year, right? And then Venus is, like I said, going to retrograde back. So this energy to be ending the year in this retrograde state, I find that can be very empowering from the standpoint of being able to plan. Retrogrades are about reflection, refinement, and doing so at this particular time when naturally your psychology is springing towards, in one regard, winter and the embracing the transcendence of death and all that entails. But then our real world associations okay, a new year is coming, 2022. So in simplest terms, to go forward, we got to look back. So looking back is going to help propel us forward. It's giving us time to plan it out. The next part, going back to the last retrograde. So I was hinting at this before, but I'm going to just be a little bit more direct here. So last Venus retrograde occurs May 2020. A whole 2 months after we're in lockdown. What's going on? What's the climate of Venus things in your life, right? Where was that transit occurring? And what changed from there? And where are you now? So you got quite some time to look and reflect about. Now here's the key. Gemini was the ideas. It was the spark. It was something new, right? Because collectively, that time period was something new. I've been telling y'all, new paradigms are forming. If you out there and you're a person that quit your job and said, I'm not going back to that shit, all right, you're doing something right. Now, what we need to do here is look back towards that time period, see what was going on, how we were feeling, what new things came about, and track our progress. Progress has been made, right? But now that Venus is here, and I always want to say it's like, say we could take that time period to now as like a whole learning experience. And now in Capricorn, it's kind of about solidifying, crystallizing it. So if you had the idea of like, yo, I should go back to school or I should start this new endeavor, now is the culminating. You're probably graduating a program or seeing a more realistic way of how the thing can be achieved. Say you haven't really, say you're a person that like expected that during this time, like, okay, I started this thing and I should be further along with it. The way the universe works is like, particularly Saturn and stuff, don't quit. Like, these things work in a way where it's like you've been putting in all this work, and the moment in which you feel defeated is the moment in which things start opening up. Then when you want to look at this in terms of like the transits and the energies, I always try to tell y'all, when these planets get around certain degrees, I feel like they open up and really start manifesting, particularly with Saturn and Capricorn energy. So don't give up. Refine, do something different towards the plan, or take a different approach. Okay, so that's a major part of it. Tracking that progress from the last Venus retrograde to now. So I've given it to you in the sense of what was once ideas, or what was the initial spark, or the something new should be at another level. And if it's not, it should still be coming, but also the approach, or the approach needs to be refined and reworked. Okay, so next aspect of this upcoming Venus retrograde is the conjunction with Pluto, which is major. All right. Now, first and foremost, if we just doing word association, like Venus is, to an extent, is love. And for the sake of logical understanding, let's just say Venus and Pluto equals self-love, or really the need for more of that, which hence is going to trigger the transformation. So Venus conjunct Pluto right here is working in a way where it's like we're so aware of our desires, and even the most humblest people are like, yo, I want more, or I deserve more. And that's really should be the attitude stemming from what I was saying about this eclipse in Taurus. So new energy of self-value and all these things. So the next layer of that is working out the kinks of where we're lacking that. So Venus conjunct Pluto wants you to focus on the relationship with yourself and your goals wherever Capricorn is. So let's go around the board. And like I said, I'm going to be brief, but you guys just elaborate on these aspects, right? In these different ways. So if this is occurring in the first, it's likely that Capricorn risings have not been feeling too good about themselves. To some extent, they may have been like hiding away, right? For whatever reason, or maybe limited for a number of different circumstances. But this this retrograde is going to be a reorientation of the personality and how it is interacting with the different areas of life. So like I said, Capricorn, Capricorn rising, if you haven't really been putting yourself out there or making an effort to connect, you're going to be having these feelings that make you want to do so. Second house, this is really, I could really link this in with the 2nd, the 6th, and the 10th. I'll do that. So this is really what I'm talking about of things coming to fruition, things, ideas manifesting. If you say, because the 2nd, 6th, 10th, these are all earth houses. These are all dealing with, practicality, our wealth, and all of that. So many of the changes that are set to occur are going to occur within these areas. So this retrograde occurring here is telling you to reassess your own value, or the value in which your career or where you've been putting energy into. Is it paying off? Is it reciprocating the same value? That's going to be like twofold in sense of career, but also with others, right? Then when we go to the 6th house aspect, it's a matter of the time you get for self-love on a day-to-day basis, right? Are you balancing that in pursuits? Or are you giving too much of the career and lacking, some of self? Or do you have things that you want to do for self that you're not doing? All of that, making time for that, right? And all of this triggers the transformation, more self-love. Then in the 10th house, this is where it's really like you're similar to the first. Is like you want to be seen more, or you want to change the way in which you've been feeling or relating towards 10th house things, Capricorn things. So my advice to you guys, play the part, become it. In this world, it's all about, it's very 10th house right now, particularly this country, like, so what are you selling? We all have something that we want to give away. We all have something we want to stand behind. This transit is telling you it's okay to do that and to just refine your approach of how you do so. All right. So then we have the air houses, 3, 7, and 11. And this advice is for everybody. Because remember, I'm specifying, but this can play out in a multitude of different ways. But the retrograde in these houses is actually going to find the individual kind of going outside of themselves. You could be seeking something outside of yourself in terms of acquiring some type of new knowledge or learning in regards to partnerships. This does work in a way where it can lead to fated partnerships that are meant to trigger that transformation, and that transformation itself help you expand within that area. So there's also the energy of role models here and embracing the help that comes. But we don't want to look too much outside of ourselves. Everything boils down to balance, particularly with Venus. But keeping the self-love principle in mind here, I think it's imperative that whatever we're seeking outside, we try to do that for ourselves first, okay? Very subtle but key principle. Learning how to love yourself, learning how to fulfill your needs really opens up a channel to receive that from others, because you will lack the expectation of it, okay? At the same time, like I'm saying, on all fronts, there is a transformative aspect towards how we're relating. And I want to build more on this idea, but this is the energy I'm very aware of. Those who are not in alignment with where you are, where you're going, the energy and interacting with them, right? So I'm giving an example of, let's say you're in a partnership, best friend, romantic lover, whatever. You guys are actually going in two directions. You're embracing more of these things that you value, and they're embracing whatever. If the person is not on your level, the interactions energetically can feel draining. The person's attitude can be um not optimistic, and overall like they can be this Saturn like presence in terms of limiting your hopes and dreams. So there's a wisdom here that if you take some time to embrace your own space and you start to thrive in that space, and then you get back around others and things are changing, the proof is in the pudding. So to make it even clearer for you guys, like, you should voluntarily take yourself away from situations that just don't fit. And it's gonna be felt even more if, like, you're in a very real intimate relationship. It's just in two different directions. This energy is redundant. It comes back around every so often. So it's still giving those the chance to do so. And because of what I know, I in my experience, I know that, like, if you live with someone and finances and kids and all this stuff is involved, it ain't as easy. But there still can energetically be ways of cutting ties or starting in that new direction. So that's going to be a strong influence, I believe, overall, but definitely if it's occurring in these social houses. Then we have 4, 8, and 12, where I feel like this is where this retrograde is going to be most intense. So let's start in the 4th house. Already I've been seeing, people with Capricorn energy here haven't been comfortable in terms of home. They felt limited, just not being able to engulf themselves in the spiritual routine or find the emotional fulfillment. This is different for everybody, but you got to be able to pinpoint, okay, what's stopping the flow of energy here? What about my home life? What about my routine in the house is taken away from what I'm really trying to do? And then, just like I brought up, that same thing can be apparent in regards to family and difference in values and different directions and feeling discouraged. So keep that in mind. In the 8th house, it's me intense through the sense of scenarios or scenarios playing out that triggered a transformation. So being cheated on, losing maybe financial losses, things like that. But it's going to be these feelings of lack. So the self-love principle in this house will be very much so needed. And that can come through study. That can come through ritual. That can come through communication, right? Depending on what's here innately and all of that. So figuring out ways to become more whole and redirect the desires constructively, right? Or more self-love oriented desires and actions. Then in the 12th house, all of these psychic houses are going to force you to take a real strong, like, honest look at yourself. But relationships with money, career, unconscious habits. So let me clarify this as an overall thing, but even more so in these houses. Capricorn and Cancer represent conditioning. The Capricorn conditioning is more so like, it's related to the father. It's related towards how you go out and assert yourself in the world, right? Your responsibility, your ambition, the discipline ingrained. So in the 12th house, natally, that could even just be like having an ancestral history of those scenarios, right? And in that regard, by transit and stuff like that, this can indicate having to confront those patterns or those conditioned patterns that you learned. There can be daddy issues, overbearing family here, all lots of things, but it's subtle. It's subtle. With this energy, what I'm trying to get through to y'all, you can make yourself rationalize or acknowledge the truth and just kind of keep it pushing. But in order to heal this energy, there's a real honesty that is required. So, in lamest terms, become more responsible, acknowledge where you have negative conditioning or beliefs, or how your relationship with money, finances, resources affects your sense of self, but then also the progress of your relationships, right? Maybe you guys need to get out of a home scenario. So I'm gonna keep going with this, but I'll stop it here. All right. So this is my uh, analysis of the upcoming Venus retrograde cycle. Feel free to chime in. Let me know what you're thinking. If you need a reading, feel free to click the description link, send me an email, check out my website. We'll set something up. Till next time, peace.